To the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust meeting of Thursday, October 13th, 2022. We're at Town Hall in Memorial Hall, 34 West Main Street, Westborough. This meeting is being broadcast by Westborough TV. I'm calling to order approval of minutes. We're going to defer that until Alan's here, who will be here about 9:30.
I'm on the phone.
Yeah, you are on the phone, so you can listen in. You can't really vote or anything, I believe. But we're going to move on to discussion of the residents at Westborough Station. We'll wait until you're here per your request, and we'll move right to the 3 Baylor Avenue update. So anyhow, the house has been cleaned out. Haul Away, which was our vendor that we used, I believe did a good job. There was really nothing left. They did the complete inside. They did all the debris outside, etc. There was a water bed that they found in one of the rooms, which they had a sump pump out the water before they could move the frame, etc. Nothing else that was too horrific. There was minimal toxic waste that they left, just some paint cans and paint thinner. So really, we're didn't find anything that is going to require any significant expenditures. I did send out, if we want to just somebody start with these and pass them along, I did send out a set of pictures that I took yesterday morning just to verify, just to verify the cleanliness that they finished it. I did meet the owner, William, there, just happened to be taking out the last truckload, and we're at this point good to go on to the next step, and that's what I would like to talk about at this time. Some immediate and then if possible longer term next steps. So I'd like to turn this over to maybe Hank, and I think Ken's come up to date. Nancy's been sort of doing a lot of the organization of just getting us to this point where we can go into more of a construction phases of the project. So, Hank, I know you visited over there. Your impressions?
I mean, the existing building probably depends on what we believe our end product should look like. You got to define where you want to be when you're done to figure out how to map a path to get there. However, there's a number of things about the existing building that are of great concern to me. There's a number of things that are clear. I mean, there's clearly nothing in that building that's salvageable, with the possible exception of the exterior frame. I don't even think the interior frame is salvageable because I think the layout stinks, to be polite. The building's probably too small. The roof clearly needs to be replaced. It appears to me as though the exterior grade is at the same elevation as the slab. I don't believe that that's a good way to build. That's going to have to be, something's going to have to be done about that. It's not clear to me that there's a frost wall underneath that slab. Okay.
We don't know, right?
We don't know until you investigate. So that there's just a number. It's likely that when we figure out where we want to go and turn it and get developers to give us proposals, the proposals will come back to tear it down and replace it. So I think the next step is, rather than trying to figure out whether we want to tear it down, rehab it, or whatever, let's figure out what we want. Let's make the policy decisions as to what we want to be part of the requirements on a developer, and then you take those requirements, we fold them in an RFP, and go out and find some developers. Okay. Nancy and I had some conversations. I believe we can get folks from Habitat for Humanity to come and have their licensed contractor do an inspection, have their executive director look at it, and they could come back and give us, a one-pager or something that says, well, if we were to develop this property, given our knowledge of the potential market where you're trying to, the clientele you're trying to serve, here's the things that we think you ought to be doing with the building. I think, then I started making a list. Kate and Nancy had a very good conversation, trying to flesh out what are the needs of a family who would live in the home for a long period of time. I think we need to build on that. I mean, we could take that and make that part of the understanding of, how big do the rooms need to be? What are some requirements on the layouts? Do you really need to have a washer and dryer? Do you need a dishwasher? What about storage space? There's no basement. All sorts of things of that type. How many bedrooms do you think are appropriate for the families that you think will be candidates to live in the home? So there's also then, I've got a list of people who want to take a look at it, of things that we could start, beginning list of requirements that we can act on.
I'm sorry, say again, you have a list of
I have a
people?
list of requirements.
Of requirements, okay.
Most of them are either zoning or construction related. But if folks want to look at it, I'll pass it out. We don't have to discuss it now. Maybe people give me feedback on what they want to see added to the list. And then if folks are comfortable with one of us getting Habitat to go take a look through, I can work that out. So let me pass you out a list.
Yeah, we can,
I don't know if you want to actually do anything with it, but look at it.
I think it's best that people review that offline and
I
just
gave
get
you
a.
stuff I didn't want to give you, didn't I? Sorry. Is that the right page? Yeah, that's the right page. Should be one page. So again, I mean, a piece of it is kind of the top piece is some things around what DHCD is going to require if you want it to be part of the SHI, which I think you do. So you got to make that, you got to say, hey, I want it to be part of the SHI. I don't want it to be age restricted. I do want the developer to do all of the work involved with filing with DHCD to achieve the SHI arrangements, to do the marketing and selling, to run the family selection, et cetera. I mean, there's things like that. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about what will we provide.
Okay.
The one other action that might require money, we need to decide, at this point in time, do we need to do a survey of the property and get a plot plan for the building that's on the property? We do not have a survey. We don't know where the building is on the property with precision. We know it's there, but we don't know where it is relative to the boundaries. If we think that the building needs to be expanded in size, then we need to know where the boundaries are, and we need to know where the building is positioned so that you can look at so you can comply with the zoning requirements. We would be allowed to expand the building as long as it's not more than, I think it's 50% or 5,000 or 500 square feet. In case of this building, it's probably the 500 square feet's the max. But I don't think you'd want to do more than that.
You have a nice big backyard.
Yeah,
Go
if
backwards.
we feel that we want to get the survey done and the plot plan, I have a bid from Jarvis Land Survey that's like $1,650 to get that done.
Okay. Ken, I don't think you've had a chance to actually look at it except through the pictures. I don't know what your maybe initial thoughts are. The sort of,
Yeah, I
I'll
tend
say
to
a
agree with-
proposal on the table is to get Habitat
Yeah.
for Humanity to come in just as another set of
Right,
eyes.
Right, just come look at it and tell us what you think would be appropriate for us to do with it.
Right.
Now, that was my action item, but
Yeah.
of course I was waiting for it to be clean, but due to my availability, do Ken and Hank want, I'd like to be there, but at least get it scheduled if I
Yeah,
can be
I
there.
can talk to him and start trying to schedule. I mean, we can try and schedule it for when you're back.
Yeah, I mean, I could even make it I'd say the 29th, which is a Friday, from that date on, I can,
Yeah,
and I
coordinate.
apologize, that is my action item, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
No, that's fine,
Again,
that's
just-
fine.
Just full disclosure, I mean, when working with Habitat, I personally have to maintain a little bit of distance and I don't inadvertently get into a conflict of interest.
Right.
I mean, I was on their board of directors for 12 years. I've been a volunteer for a long time, so I've still got relationships there that might be interpreted as conflict of interest.
Do we want someone else to contact them? Do you want me to?
No, contacting them,
wanna have-
asking them to come in, scheduling something.
I think having a
There's
couple
no,
people
there's no conflict
involved.
there,
Right.
but if I was the person to take the report and report it out, and, that wouldn't be a good idea.
And I think we talked, it would be good if Ken was there too with his
So we
expertise.
can
So
work something out, we can get Ken
Yeah,
to be with
Yeah,
them.
I'd really like you to get involved. Okay? I mean, you know, obviously you have insight in a lot of these kinds of, among other things.
If you want to knock it down and keep the slab, or there's easy ways to find out if there's a frost wall
Yeah,
under the slab, like Hank was saying, and a lot of things we could just look at ourselves.
right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, figure things out.
And then again, I mean, if you believe we want to get a survey done, probably take you 8 weeks to get a survey done. We need to appropriate some money to do that.
Okay, why don't we wait for Alan to come and we can take that.
Super, we'll come back to it, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yep.
because we do have some money that I think we're still within our, we have a 5,000 allocation for,
Oh, we may be, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right,
I
'cause we
forgot
did a
about that.
special-
we did a
allocation for
special
sure.
5,000,
Yep.
that's to
Just for, yes. super.
initial whatever we
Let's-
needed
When he
during the
gets here, we can
transition.
circle back.
That was separate from the money for the cleanup.
Oh, that's great.
All right, so that's already been approved, so we can, we don't have a problem spending that. I'd just like to get a, yeah.
Yep, just like to, yep, I
a
don't want
bit- A
to.
bit of a consensus that we think that that's worthwhile. Kate, Nancy, your thoughts on next steps?
Well, Hank and I have talked, so I don't want to repeat, but I agree with Hank, getting the experts out there to tour and give us some ideas and some next steps is very good. Kate and I did have a conversation. She has talked to many of the people that she services about what their needs are. I don't know if we need to go into them right now, but I think this all needs to be inclusive, especially if we're tearing it down. You know, this has to be something that works for a small family that is going to have, you know, whatever their needs are. We need to think of that, not so much the layout now. I mentioned to Hank just, you know, the door and the main, you know, you open that front door, all the cold air comes in. Every inch of the house gets cold air. So, you know, there's design things that
Oh,
could be
yeah.
done. As storage was a big one. You know, having a family kitchen where you know, because, you know, they're not
Yep.
going out to dinner. Little things like that I think, as a policy, if we could request that from the RFPs, because we know everybody wants to do this low price, but we got to make sure there's some quality and some
Yeah.
thought put into it, that it's a serviceable home and a happy home. you know.
Right. I think getting a document, and I don't mean a big document, but at least what we do is sort of a vision kind of statement, and maybe Kate, you may want to work on that, saying, you know, lay it out, says, this is the, what we believe are the types of families that we're looking at. Obviously, we know about financial, you know, levels per AMI, et cetera. But, you know, what we feel would be an appropriate for that, once again, that location, sized house, certain designs. Yeah. Go ahead, Alan.
If I can interject,
Yep.
Stacking out anything beyond whether we expect this to be affordable to, you know, a certain level of AMI would be inappropriate. I mean, we can identify it as family housing, and there are already definitions from HUD and DHCD of what family housing is.
Mm-hmm.
But to talk further about what types of families we'd be looking to have in it could be seen as discriminatory.
Yeah, I didn't mean to misspeak as far as saying types, I mean, just,
We can decide on the number of bedrooms.
yeah, that's what,
And then family housing, we can decide on what level of, you know, AMI we want as far as pricing, either as a rental or as a sale unit.
right.
But beyond certainly look to understand the needs of the community, to get a sense of the types of families and the size of families, et cetera, any special needs that families might have on the wait list that we would want to plan into the construction for, the best long-term usability of the property. But beyond that, we shouldn't get too much into defining who we think will be living there.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about demographics as much as what would make a decent family home for, a certain size, let's say a 3-bedroom. I think that property lends itself to that size, which is what it has now. And those bedrooms are not that small. I mean, that's currently on that slab. They're decent. They're very usable size and, very,
DHCD has a lot of guidelines.
Right.
But you need to understand,
Is the home currently configured as a 2-bedroom?
it's a 3-bedroom.
it's currently a 3, but there are 3 rooms that could be bedrooms. It's not clear that it's a
What?
3-bedroom house.
Right.
1 bath.
Yeah, so for example, that's something definitely for any family
Yeah.
now. You can, 1 bathroom for any family, that's,
But again, I mean, Kate, particularly if you want to feed to me what you think are an appropriate set of amenities or requirements on the layout, on how the home is facilitated. Is it facilitated for handicap visitable? Is it facilitated for aging in place? Is it facilitated for handicap access? Again, we can when we understand what we're talking about, what we think we may want, we can then understand what restrictions DHCD will then put upon the family selection process because of the way you've configured the home. I mean, an example is if you make it handicap accessible, I believe there's a DHCD requirement that folks who are handicapped, families that have handicapped individuals, get preference in the lottery. Okay, but that, to me, that's the secondary question. Primary question is, what do you want it to look like? And then before you lock in on the policy, you need to understand what does that imply in terms of the limits on marketing and family selection.
Okay. It sounds like one of the things we should do so far is to get if we can reach out to Habitat
Yep.
for Humanity, have them produce a report of their thoughts, their findings, their,
What do you recommend?
if even recommendations from what they see, is this, I mean, an initial question is, do we tear it down and
Yeah.
start from scratch, or do we renovate the existing
Yep.
footprint in some fashion? Doesn't mean we have to keep the rooms exactly the same, but I think we owe the townspeople to do an appropriate
Absolutely.
job so that we're making the right decision, because there's significant cost differences between doing, the tear down, and we don't know that yet. We don't know all those numbers. I think we need to start building some, scenarios with some assumptions about, tear down costs, things like that. But I think we can do that as soon as we get I think we can get those kind of quotes fairly quickly once we have Habitat for Humanity. I think it would be prudent to also do a survey, because the last thing we want to do is go make an assumption about what we can build, what the footprint is, and if we don't have the setbacks.
I can get I can contract
Okay.
Jarvis to do that. It'll be about $1,650.
Right, is there any objection to doing that survey?
no,
I hear none. Alan, you're on.
I think we should have a motion to do the survey.
Okay, so why don't we, what I'm going to do is make a motion that we authorize up to $2,000 to be expended for a survey of the property at 3 Baylor Avenue. And for Hank, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Second.
Any discussion?
nope.
Nope, okay. All those in favor, raise your hands. Okay, I see five present, 5 in favor. So that
I
has,
raised my hand.
okay. 6. I don't know, are you, give,
I'm attending the meeting.
okay. I'm still getting like remote, hybrid, in person,
Yeah.
call in, what have you, what we can do.
This is an in-person meeting with 1 remote attendee.
Okay, that's,
But I'm entering the building, I'll be up in just a moment.
but I say that again?
He's in the building. He'll be upstairs in just a moment.
Okay, so, all right, as long as you're in the building. Okay, we're gonna hang up here, all right. All right, good, all right, Hank, if you can pursue that with
Sure.
the survey
Will do.
and Habitat for Humanity. Ken, I can give you, if you want to do a quick walk through beforehand, I'll
I'd
give
like
you,
that.
we'll make sure you get, we have like a realtor's lock on
Yeah.
it, and we'll give you the combination for
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Do you want me to still possess the key while I'm away, or would you like to take?
Well, the key, we have a key,
You got the.
we have
Got
the
a
key right
lockbox
there,
in
that's fine.
That's easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So anyhow, Alan has joined us at 9:25. All right, why don't we, how are we doing on time? We're at 9:25. Why don't we, do we want to do approval of the minutes? Have people had a chance to look through the last 2 minutes, the September 8th and the 27th?
So-
The 8th was our regular meeting, the 27th was the special.
Only the 8th was on the agenda?
Right.
So we can vote that
should
one
only do
today.
that.
Which one is the 8th? Okay, yes.
The 8th is was our regularly scheduled September meeting.
Okay.
All right, it was done remote. I did not find anything on it.
Move we accept the minutes for September 8th as presented.
All right, so there's a motion,
Seconded.
seconded, and any discussion, corrections? Nope, all right, all those in
Ed didn't
favor?
find anything, then nothing is.
I try to really use an eagle eye on this, and the few talents I have. All right, good, all right, so the September 8 minutes, we'll take up the September 27th at our next meeting. Moving on, we have, Alan asked that we have a discussion on some actions related to the residents at Westborough Station. And given, and we won't go into it too much, but just to remind everybody, this is a current development near the physical railroad station, the Westborough Station, that we have been working with, and the town has really taken over, but we did some initial outreach to, with the goal of maintaining, there's 24 affordable units that are currently in that development. The residents were notified that the landlord believed that their, if you will, affordability was expiring, and therefore their rents would go up to regular market rents, which would be double, more than double what they were paying per affordable rents. So the town, after we had done our spade work, if you will, found some case law, the town's council and others have taken over. And Alan, you may have, and sort of we've been out of the picture for a bit. It's really been in the town's thing. So I'll turn it over to Alan to bring us up to date and any actions that we may want to take going forward regarding this, how we can help.
Okay, so sort of an update as far as the public record of the case goes. The town of Westborough, through its select board, filed suit against Northland to compel them to adhere to the affordable housing covenants using the Supreme Judicial Court's Ardmore decision is the basis.
And we brought that in land court.
In land court at the state level. The day before, in addition to that, we were asking for, the town asked for a preliminary injunction to prevent any change of status of those units, rent-wise or affordability-wise, until the matter could be fully adjudicated. Late in the day before that hearing was scheduled, Northland filed a motion to remove the case to federal court, claiming that several claims, that in part that the Ardmore decision violated the Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution as a regulatory taking. That clearly the town doesn't believe that's the case. The initial hearing on motions in district court was delayed. It happened yesterday at noon. The current status is the
So
judge.
Federal District Court.
Yeah,
This is-
U.S. District Court of District of Massachusetts in Boston. It was an in-person hearing. The judge acknowledged the need for a timely decision, given that currently the written commitments from Northland were providing extensions on affordability only for people whose lease renewed prior to November 1st. And the judge has taken the arguments under advisement and will issue a decision, we assume, quickly. So what can happen here is the judge could agree that there's a jurisdiction for the U.S. District Court in this case. And then at that point, the judge could decide whether or not to provide the injunction or not. Or the judge could say that this case gets remanded back to land court, that there is no federal issue here, there is really no constitutional question, it's a permitting issue, which is clearly the jurisdiction of the state, there's no federal jurisdiction. If the latter happens, we would have to go back to have a hearing in land court for a preliminary injunction. This is where we get into the what-if scenarios. If the case is remanded back to land court, it is unclear, given the timing of dockets, if we would be able to have a hearing scheduled before November 1st to hear arguments and whether or not there'd be enough time to get a preliminary injunction issued. Okay, so what that does is, obviously the town would like to see this remanded to state court where the case law and is very clear. But if that happens, we could be in a situation where there is a gap between what Northland has committed to in writing with respect to rents and the timing of hearings and things of that nature, which puts the hearing at risk. The town is communicating and working with the Attorney General's office, who will step in to the case. Not really a role for them, was our understanding for this particular hearing, but they are definitely in the loop now and actively engaged in communication with us, both as well as the town's counsel on this case, both from the litigation side of the Attorney General's office as well as the community relations side, who've been communicating with myself and Town Manager Christy Williams. And additionally, the town, Christy Williams and myself, had a conference, a Zoom meeting with representatives from CHAPA, which is for those who aren't aware, it's a statewide affordable housing support and advocacy group. They are involved. They actually have an entire team of Chapter 40B litigation specialists. They are providing advice and guidance for us on a number of things. And as the case moves forward, they indicated that one of the things that they could potentially do is provide amicus briefs and assistance to counsel, so which is good. Part of our conversation with CHAPA was protection of residents. Mm-hmm. And what I learned in that conversation was that if the rents were to go up on November 1st, residents obviously would not be able to afford, the tenants would not be able to afford that. If they short pay or don't pay, Northland could initiate eviction procedures. And even though there's a short gap and we're confident that we would get an injunction in state or federal court, whichever way the case moves, if Northland were to take that action, the fact that eviction proceedings were initiated would show up on the credit reports of those tenants, which could render them ineligible for affordable housing in the future. So the goal in assisting the tenants at this point is to take actions that would prevent or avoid any action towards eviction by the property owner. And again, I have no indication that the property owner would move that quick or want to. It's a complicated matter. Further complicating the situation is during the hearing yesterday, our town council advised us that the attorneys for Northland made a vague statement about the duration of their offer to maintain affordability while this issue is resolved. It's unclear if what they said in court differs from what we're aware of already, or if it's a longer period of time. So council's going to be trying to get that information, and we're trying to verify the claim. I've reached out to some of the tenants who spoke to me personally. I'm waiting to get information back, which could also affect whether or not any action is needed. The recommendation and sort of the guidance from CHAPA is that if there's going to be a gap where rents could be raised and the tenants would have to pay for it, the state has the ability to offer in an emergency situation rental assistance vouchers. And so the suggestion was made that the town, in any way, as in the different entities within the town, make an emergency appeal to DHCD and have that ready to go should that request become necessary. And so what I'm going to pass out now.
Can we do that preemptively, or does there have to
So
be?
we can do it. Let me send these down. So what we can do, and I've got. What we can do is, what I'm passing is a draft letter that would go to Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox of the Department of Housing and Community Development, who heads the specific agency, as well as the Cabinet Secretary Mike Keneally of the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. And what this letter will do is make the request, and our motion would be to approve this letter pending further review by the town manager and town council, and authorize Ed as chair and myself as the select board representative to send the letter if it is deemed necessary to take that action in consultation with the town manager and town council. As town manager, we believe Christy Williams can send a similar letter directly, and the intent is that this would also be on the select board agendas. The select board has an open meeting immediately before town meeting on Monday night. It's usually to do any final votes for town meeting, but this topic is expected to be on that agenda as well. So the select board would act on this as well as necessary on Monday to support any request. And so I know it's a lot last minute. This was literally written at like 10 o'clock last night based on all the phone calls yesterday. Hank?
Just quick, just trying to understand the risk of eviction and eviction notification. I mean, if, I assume in the state of Massachusetts, there's some kind of grace period during which if a person, hey, if the rent's due on November 1st and I don't pay it till November 15th, I'm not eligible for an eviction. But there's probably some grace period during which folks could not pay the rent. It'd be good to know what that grace period is, because we're fighting a time clock here.
Yeah, we're working through all of that, and so this is really a just in case.
Yeah.
We need this for the timing. The other issue is that if there are any units where the residents have already found alternate affordable housing and are planning on departing at the end of their lease, having DHCD involved with rental vouchers tied to the units would potentially prevent those from being now marketed as market rate. And so,
Even if they got a new tenant,
even if they got a new tenant,
Or-
right? So
they would still,
there are a couple of circumstances, first of all, if Northland has in fact voluntarily agreed to extend the period which they'll maintain the affordable rents, we don't need to issue this, at least not yet. Depends how long it takes for the case and injunctions. If they don't, there's a grace period, but there's also a time period for the bureaucracy to work.
Yep.
no, yeah.
And we would want to start those wheels in motion if we felt it was necessary as quickly as possible. And so this is strictly contingent. It would be an action, and the letter wouldn't be sent unless it was actually deemed necessary that the vouchers would come into play.
No, it makes sense to send a letter. I'm just thinking about, I mean, we ought to, whatever we need to do to authorize sending the letter, I would suggest we should do. I'm just thinking about, are there additional things that we might want to put in the queue, additional backstops?
Good question, because
I
that will
understand
be,
it's not a simple question.
that will be
Good
the.
segue.
Good segue. And there is something else we can do, but before we move on to that, I know that no one's really had a chance to read the draft letter yet. This is the literal first draft of the letter. Given the timing of everything, like I said, it got wrapped up late last night. What I would ask is that if, what I would ask, and I've got a specific motion here, and the motion would be to authorize the chair.
Making a motion now.
Well, let me say what the motion would be so we understand
Okay.
what I'm asking. The motion would be to authorize the chair and the select board's representative to send the letter as presented to Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox, as mentioned, and Secretary Mike Keneally, subject to review by town council and the town manager, and subject to a determination of need in conjunction with town council and the town manager. If individuals had any questions or comments on the content of the letter, following that vote, you could send it, we can't deliberate, right? But you can send it to me, I would forward it to town council and the town manager to incorporate into their comments and their assessment of the letter. But would need those comments very quickly, end of day today, first thing tomorrow morning.
The only suggestion is I would say substantially in the form, because it may get edited, right? You said in the form, I would think if you would.
Letter as presented, subject, but it is subject to review
Okay.
by town, so the expectation is that they will have specific edits. There'll be some other things I probably didn't cite the cases and the, specific legal way.
The attorney will know to do that.
Is the background information and current status going to be part of the letter?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Also, and I've seen this before, I'm going to chime in now. My name should always be Edward F. Bain.
Okay, we'll make
I mean,
that,
Ed is just a nickname, but that's my
Okay,
full name,
we'll-
and that's what I always use legally.
okay. My apologies. That will not
Apology
happen.
accepted.
That will not happen again.
It
I've been
appears,
called many things, but
it appears we're making a choice not to ask the selectmen to ratify the letter before it's sent.
No,
Is that a conscious choice, or is just,
it's a conscious choice. We're acting in our independent advocacy capacity.
nope, that's great.
And what will happen is, the thought is if this letter needs to go, there'd be one specifically from the town manager. There would also be one from the select board. Senator Eldridge's office is drafting a similar version of support for this and would send an additional
is he still our
letter.
senator?
He's still our senator until Senator Moore is sworn in following the election in November. So January 1st, I believe, or 2nd.
Until sworn in, right.
So, So-
Let's make the motion.
okay. So I moved, I'll read the full motion. I move to authorize the chair and select board's representative to send the letter as presented to Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox, Department of Housing and Community Development, and Secretary Mike Keneally, Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, subject to review by town council and the town manager, and subject to a determination of need in conjunction with town council and the town manager.
Second,
Okay, discussion.
great idea, let's do it.
Well,
Anything
yeah,
needed.
Agreed.
Okay?
question, okay. All right, take a vote. All those in favor? All right, 6 being present, 6 in favor.
Okay, now to Hank's awesome segue question. There is another, backstop mechanism that we have in place. This would only be needed if DHCD is unwilling or unable for some reason to issue the emergency vouchers. Which would be a procedural, timing, process, or funding potential issue there. And that would be to provide emergency rental assistance to the tenants. Through the trust, the town could also do it with any unused ARPA funds. Okay, but that conversation would potentially happen through the select board. So there's timing involved, but fortuitously, this was brought up yesterday in our meetings today. So, we knew this potentially could be coming. Thank you, Ed, for revising the agenda. And so, again, this would be a last resort mechanism to protect the tenants in those affordable units. And would have to be structured legally with significant input from town council for a couple of reasons. In large part, we have to make sure that in providing the assistance, there's no indication that that in any way validates Northland's claims with respect to the case. It cannot inadvertently relinquish any rights of the town or the tenants. It has to be really strictly for the protection and benefits of the tenant, even though we are providing funds to the developer, to the property owner. Additionally, because of the case, if the legal ruling in the case, whether it's in U.S. District Court or preferably land court, is that Ardmore holds and those units have to remain affordable, then any emergency assistance we have provided would technically be an overpayment of rent. And part of the process would be those funds would have to be returned.
But you're going to have to get Norland to approve that, right?
Right. Well, any rental assistance program, Northland would have to agree to accept the funds and the terms and conditions therein. And one of the terms and conditions would be that there can be no action, no notice or action related to eviction
Right.
during the period, much like we did with the COVID-19 rental assistance.
Before we take any action beyond maybe recommending that a plan be prepared, would seem we ought to go into executive session, because we're now at a point where we're in a public meeting, and our discussions and actions might impact our negotiating strategy in this litigation.
We're not a party to the,
I understand we're not, but we're part of the town, and
right, but we're not discussing strategy with respect to litigation.
if we were to vote this, we would be.
No, we're not.
Well, we'd be providing, I mean, if the counterparty was aware that we had agreed to do this, they would then have a leverage, knowing that there was a backstop, and would give them some leverage in their action. That's
But
my-
not related to the case.
Excuse me?
But not related to arguments in court. It's-
No,
I received advice from counsel on this. This is not an executive session matter.
Okay.
And we can't, well, at this meeting, since we did not
Right.
put it on the agenda, unfortunately, we can't
Yeah.
go into executive session.
To me, it makes sense to get the details of the plan together, so that we could quickly act on the plan if we decide it's appropriate to do, but I'd kind of like to understand the details.
Okay. So what I handed out in front of you is a motion
Yep.
that outlines the scope of what the plan, again, with, based on conversation with council, would need to include. It would be, our motion today and the action would be contingent, again, on consensus between the delegated, the identified representatives of the trust, the town manager, and town council as a necessary last resort action to assist and protect the tenants of the affordable units at the residence of Westborough Station. The program would be an emergency and temporary rental assistance program. It would be created with guidance and direction from town council and other qualified advisors who would draft the necessary tenant and landlord documents and agreements. It would include, the motion mandates that we include, with guidance from town council, stipulations that the program is strictly for the protection and benefit of the tenants. The program is not in any form relinquish any rights of the town of Westborough, the tenants, and the program does not in any form acknowledge any claim regarding the affordability status of the units or any case pending in Massachusetts or federal court, including in the program and documents and plan with guidance from town council, provisions to ensure all monies paid to the property owner will be refunded in full within 5 business days of any judgment by any court of competent jurisdiction that the affordability covenants, requirements, or restrictions shall remain in effect. And the last item would be setting an amount of initial funds we'd be willing to expend.
I would like to leave the amount TBD, right? The plan would propose the amount.
So the issue is that if we don't have, an initial up to amount, then if needed, we would have to convene another meeting of the trust.
Yeah, again, I'd kind of like to understand
And timing
how many units
wise,
and how much subsidy and how long it'll last and things like that, just so that we understand the details. And if that means we got to convene a quick online meeting, that shouldn't be a problem, I would think.
It's 24 units. We know that their rent is gonna nearly double.
in some
right?
cases triple.
In some cases, triple. Okay, so,
So the,
We did do, and this is a little
Yeah, it's
outdated,
gonna
in
be-
February, as we were first, this is when we first started to get involved, I did get a list from Northland of their current rental amounts for each unit, each of the 24, and it's staggered by the size, obviously,
Right.
so studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, et cetera. And at that point, I also went on and looked at what their rental prices were on their website for those sized units as best I could, and did a comparison. And once again, to the best of my knowledge, without perfect information, it came up to about 25K a year difference between the affordable pricing that they were paying and, Northland would receive another 25,000 per month if they were able to market all those units
So 20
at market rate.
So nominally, you're getting a 4-month extension.
Yeah, I don't know how, given that it's been over 6 months now, over
I
half a
understand,
year.
but maybe the way to set the amount is to set a number of months of extension on the 24 units, on up to 24 units.
yeah, we can do that. I mean,
A
we
90-day
can-
extension on up to 24,
we can,
on no
we
more than
can,
24 units. And then if
We
we need
can-
more
we
than
can
that, you can
certainly
always
make-
add to it later.
yeah, we can make the emotion in that nature. My understanding is it's generally better to have a dollar amount, and I'm comfortable either way.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'd rather say, hey.
My
we're-
estimate,
we're willing-
was that, looking at Ed's numbers from, February of this year, it was just under $25,000 per month. So making an assumption on potential increase in that amount, plus we might need some minor administrative costs The motion I drafted had a not to exceed 100,000, knowing that that would get us 2, possibly 3 months as needed, but it also, through our regular course of meetings, if we had to adjust the amount, we could at a future meeting. We wouldn't be tied into it. And that gives us a number. If we prefer to say for up to 3 months, for up to all 24 units, that's fine. Again, part of the way is going to play out is if we vote and pass this motion, it's going to sit a little bit until we decide, first we have to know whether or not the voucher first we have to understand whether or not we need to ask for the vouchers from the state. And then we'll need some, in my sense of timing is that if we need the vouchers, if we need to ask the state to issue those vouchers,
CD vouchers.
then while we're waiting for that, for a yes/no decision, we would start work on the legal documents and all we need for this thing to have it ready just in case they're unable to do it or unable to do it in the time frame we need. And then this would only execute if it was clear that we were going to start to need providing subsidies immediately.
I think if I could just suggest, I share Hank's concern. Could we word it in the way that it'll be for up to 3 months that we estimate to be?
Up to 3 months
up to-
and not more than 24 units.
Yeah.
Because
three-
it would,
Right.
the
3 months, not more
likelihood
than
is
20,
that
and
you
not
won't
to
have,
exceed 100,000.
there'll be empty units, there'll be, who knows, right? So kind of set a time frame and a number of units and let the dollars fall where they may.
But we could still say not to exceed 100,000.
Okay,
And then we
that's
could
fine.
always come back
Sure,
and
put them
raise
both,
it or lower
put
it.
both in, that's fine with me.
Does that work for?
Yeah, I can.
So 24 units for 3 months, estimated to be 100,000.
Okay.
Great,
Does that work?
You happy with that?
I'm
Hank?
very happy with that, yep.
No, I think
If you're-
that's good.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
It's-
Other comments on the proposed, was that a motion?
I actually have to read it formally, but just
Third time's a charm.
into the record, but I
well-
wanted to give the gist. And it just, not before we get into the motion and further discussion and vote, I do want to, one, thank the residents who've been communicating with us because they've been providing us with valuable information. I want to thank Carol Presley and Julie O'Neill Welsh and the team at Youth and Family Services for their work, and really thank the town manager and the town manager's office and town council. The amount, this is the stuff that's not visible to the public. The amount of time required to deal with this and to even prepare for the hearing in U.S. District Court is intense. And I want to, because the select board is discussing the strategy, all of the conversations the select board has by necessity are in executive session. But if you look at the number of agenda items that have been on this topic and the amount of time and the attention that the entire select board is paying to this issue is also very much appreciated.
We have a very nice, very good united front as we look to particularly help these tenants as well as help the town in a greater sense by maintaining, our SHI, our affordable units in town, et cetera. So, it goes up the ladder, if you will, from the individuals, which is our initial concern, all the way up to some larger town-wide protection issues for
Would see-
affordable housing.
Would seem like some entity would need to be responsible for administering the program. I'm just curious as to, do we have an entity in mind that we would line up to administer the program for us? Or,
It could be us, it could be the town manager's office, it could be Youth and Family Services. This would be a very specific agreement with Northland where there'd basically be an issue of a single check.
yeah,
But
but
we need
I mean,
accounting done.
You're gonna
So-
need,
Yeah.
you're gonna need a qualification process to qualify the tenants.
But
They've already qualified. So we know they
they're the
qualify.
current tenants under current lease.
Yeah, so there's nothing that we need to do. It's just basically filling in the gaps.
Right, but somebody's gotta do that work.
Yes, yes.
And I would suggest that volunteers are not a good choice.
No, no,
No.
the resources would be available to do that within the town. I don't
the
believe,
town,
if the
it's
question is, do we
question
need to go back to Metro West Collaborative Development? I don't believe we need to do that.
Okay.
I think that would.
This would.
I mean, they're very, very responsive, but I don't think, if we're just dealing with, unlike Sarah, where we had, individuals coming forward, this is really between, if you will, trust, the town, and Northland.
Okay.
Because the money would flow directly to Northland, it wouldn't go through the individual.
Correct.
Tenants. So it would be a little cleaner, if you will.
Yeah,
A
it was
little
just-
bit more straightforward, but obviously needs to have
Just always,
professional oversight.
I just always worry about there being somebody who can, when you design a program, you need to make sure you understand who's gonna implement it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right, given that, you want to, we're sort of already doing discussions, but you want to do the.
I'll read the motion.
The motion.
And so, one of the things, part of the motion is, in addition to Ed and myself, is there an additional member of the trust who'd like to help on this effort, should it be needed?
I will volunteer.
Oh, thank you. That came out of the blue.
I would have raised my hand.
I know you would have. I was trying to help you.
Okay,
If we keep it
This is
three, we
something
don't
that-
have a quorum, you don't have a quorum, right? So
Correct.
Right. good.
correct. Okay. So, the motion is, I move to authorize the chair, the select board's representative, and trustee Kate Storm to take the following actions, if determined, in consultation with the town manager and town council, to be necessary as a last resort action to assist and protect the tenants of affordable units at the residences at Westborough Station. The address is 100 Charlestown Meadows Road, Westborough, Mass. 01581. These actions are as follows. 1, initiate an emergency and temporary rental assistance program. 2, with guidance and direction from town council and other qualified advisors, draft the necessary tenant and landlord documents and agreements. 3, include, with guidance from town council, stipulations that A, this program is strictly for the protection and benefit of the tenants. B, this program does not in any form relinquish any rights of the town of Westborough or the tenants. C, this program does not in any form acknowledge any claim regarding the affordability status of the units or any case pending in Massachusetts or federal court. 4, include, with guidance from town council, provisions to ensure that all monies paid to the property owner will be refunded in full within 5 business days of any judgment by any court of competent jurisdiction, that the affordability covenants, requirements, or restrictions shall remain in effect. And 5, expend funds representing up to 3 months of the rent differential between affordable and current market rate, and not to exceed the 24 affordable units within the development, and not to exceed $100,000, inclusive of rental assistance and related costs, noting that this limit may be modified by future action of the trustees.
I think you just missed 3 months.
No, I said up to 3 months.
You said-
Sorry, all right, okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
2 seconds.
All right. Any discussion?
I would just like to second all of Alan's gratitude for all those involved, and Alan specifically on the trust for all of your work with all of this.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to take just a vote. All those in favor? Hands? Okay, looks like 6 being present, 6 in favor. Motion passes. Okay, good. I know you're just coming into this a little late, Ken, but it's we can give you a little extra background later on.
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road, obviously, since last February when we first found out about this decision, or, yeah, a tenant's got this letter in the mail, and boy, I think Youth and Family Services, which Kate is a member of, as well, volunteer, or board member. Board member?
I'm a appointed member of the Youth Commission.
Appointed member of the Youth Commission. The calls started to come in, and then we also, Alan and I got calls because we were, the town, they would call the town And we were still the ones doing the spade work of trying to find alternatives, et cetera. So it's been a long but very important project to try to maintain the affordability of these units. Okay, moving on, anything new on Endicott Drive, Hank?
Having difficulty getting, the next step, there's a couple of next steps. One is to get a meeting together between the town building department,
Right.
the planning department, and the ZBA chair. And we're having trouble getting all those folks into one room at one time. And kind of the latest message is nothing's going to happen until after town meeting's done, because all of those groups and boards are involved. So I expect before the end of the month, we'll get that meeting together, and that'll help us sort out. The key issue at the moment is what's the best process to track through to get zoning relief on the currently an M1 zone property.
Right.
The other thing is on, I'll give you the date here in a second, I'll make sure I get the date right. On October, come on. On October 18th, I will be going to the Rec Commission to inform, to get them up to speed as to what we're doing and get any feedback or comments from the commission. The Recreation Director has already said, yes, we're not gonna do anything with that land. It's just kind of informing the Rec Commission, being able to make sure that folks are comfortable that they're on board. We were gonna go in September, but they canceled their meeting for lack of a quorum, so we'll go in October. That should be pretty easy.
Do you know what time?
7 o'clock
On
at
which
the Rec
date?
Commission. Anybody who'd like to come, let me see if I know where it is.
Can you send out an email to people?
Sure, I can send an email just to remind you where and such,
Yeah, that would
if
be
you'd
good.
like to be there. And
Send it out to
that's
the
it.
board. Appreciate that. I was gonna join you in the last one, but then it got
Yeah, we'll
canceled.
see.
so just good to show a couple people, that way
Yep.
they feel that there's a,
I think it'll
you
be
know,
helpful
a
as we
sense of
go.
gravitas.
It'll be helpful going forward that we've talked with the Rec Commission and the
Oh, yeah.
Recreation Director and such, and the Select Board. Gotta kind of get support from all the
Yeah.
involved, appropriate town groups and committees.
Right. Okay, good. All right, thank you. One of the things, it's actually going to be on the ballot, question 5 on the November ballot, which is a local question. The first 4 are, as people may know, if you watch any TV at all, at any time of the day or night, you have heard discussions and ads about questions 1 through at least 3, not much on 4. But we'll have an additional question on our ballot, on the Westborough ballot, for the Community Preservation Act. And Alan asked me to put this on the agenda and asked if he could have a few minutes to do a little presentation just to bring everybody up to date on the
So,
Community
I-
Preservation Act. So Alan,
Thanks.
take it away.
I'm up here just because it's easier to plug in.
Yep.
I like the formality.
And it's working. I love that. Thank you, Westborough TV. So I thought it would be helpful to do a very quick presentation about CPA and what it means specifically for Westborough. And, and also to solicit this board's vote of support for the Community Preservation Act and adopting it here in town. And so basics about the CPA, and I want to thank Select Board Member Shelby Marshall for helping me and getting me the slides, the draft slides for today as well. The CPA is a state law that provides funding to towns to spend in 4 specific areas of community, including affordable housing, historic preservation, open space and protection, and creation of recreational opportunities. When this comes on the ballot, in our ballot in November is question 5, a majority yes vote will adopt CPA in Westborough, majority no would pass over it, and we would not be able to bring it back for another vote for 5 years. The funds that come in that we raise locally, and CPA creates a surtax on the property tax paid, not on the value of the property. And I'm going to repeat that a lot because it's often a point of confusion. The money raised and the proposed CPA for Westborough is 0.5% for the local surcharge. That money raised is matched in part by the state on an annual basis. Historical matching is 30%. So for every dollar that we raise in the surtax, we'll have $1.30 to spend. And so it's a pretty good return on investment. How the funds are allocated. Each year, the funds are dedicated to affordable housing, open space and recreation, that's the second category, it's 2 of the 4, and historic preservation. So each year, 10% of the money raised in the matching funds must be allocated to each of those 3 categories. So each category gets 10% of the raise, either to spend immediately or to hold and spend at a future date. So the CPA fund has these 3 buckets, each gets 10%. 5% of the money, up to 5%, can be held if needed for administrative costs. The remaining funds, the 65%, or as much as 70%, can be spent as the community desires among those 3 categories. And so it can be allocated into the 3 categories. For immediate spending, it can be allocated into categories for future spending, or it can be held in a pool and allocated into one of those categories at a future time. And this is done by a community preservation committee that's created to review all fund applications and potential spending. The committee makes a recommendation to town meeting makes the vote. So it's local control. Town meeting always gets to decide how these funds are spent. So what does it mean for Westborough? The surcharge is applied to the amount you pay in taxes, not the valuation of the property. And the way what it's been proposed and prior voted and now on the ballot in Westborough is that all property owners, commercial and residential, will receive a $100,000 exemption. So to walk through the example, the average residential valuation for the current fiscal year is $536,000 plus or minus. You take away $100,000 exemption, that would set the value at $436,000. The tax bill at the current rate would be $8,088. 0.5% of that would be $40. That would be the surcharge to the average family home in Westborough. In addition, there is a 100% exemption for low-income property owners of any age, and for both low and moderate income senior property owners, senior in this instance being defined as people aged 60 or over.
60 or over.
60 or over is the way the CPA is set up to provide that exemption. Looking back at our last full fiscal year, and the highlights are a little hard to see, but if we looked at the average valuation, the property tax, the surcharge at the 0.5%, the town for fiscal year 2021 would have raised just under $325,000. The state match for 2021 would have provided an additional $93,000, meaning the town would have had roughly $418,000 available in the fund to spend now or to pool for larger projects in the future across those areas. So it's key, and I'll remind again, there's always local control of funds. So community preservation committee would be established. It can be up to 9 members. 5 are required from the following boards or from organizations with comparable responsibilities. And that is Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, and the Board of Park Commissioners. And relative to this board, because of our role in the way we're legislated in creating the CPC for Westborough, this board could be offered that housing authority seat as well as, or the housing authority. It'll be up to the town to decide as the CPC gets created where that representation comes from. Most communities that have a land trust, affordable housing trust, the housing trust has a representative. And that's for the coordination of projects and the flow of funds. And housing trusts are really now where the money is flowing into affordable housing. In communities that have them, whereas the preference of the state is that housing authorities are not developing,
Right.
new projects. That said, the housing authority could be a recipient of funds to do upgrades, renovations, projects that they need to preserve and maintain or expand their ability to provide affordable housing. Again, those are the 5 required members. The committee can have up to 4 at-large members from the community as well. The CPC is required to develop a community preservation plan that is based on input from the involved boards and a public hearing. This sort of sets its mode of operations, any priorities they see, things much in the way that, as we had a working group that led to the creation of this trust, and we set guidelines and shared how we plan to operate. This would be the same thing. And then the CPC reviews all requests for funding, it accepts applications, make sure they're compliant with the requirements of the CPA, and that they meet the preservation plan goals that the CPC has created and the amount of funding available. They will then, when appropriate, make recommendations of specific projects or initiatives to town meeting, and then a straight majority of town meeting voters must approve the projects. Currently, 189 communities in Massachusetts have adopted CPA. As the exploratory committee did their work, their thought was give a little, get a lot. Under the law, the CPA surcharge can be anywhere from 1/2 of 1%, which is what Westborough has selected to move forward, up to 3%. And there are communities at the 3% rate. But the surcharge rate was set and exemptions were set to balance Westborough's desire to remain affordable in general, while allowing us to take advantage of the CPA to pay for critical community projects. There's examples here of projects that have been done by the town that could have used CPA funds, or projects that are in the pipeline and on the wish list and the need list for the town as well. That could also be used for the funds. And then if folks are interested, it'll be in the presentation. I'll include it when we post the minutes. There's some additional resources as well, as far as where to learn more about it. So the goal here is to, create this fund, have the funds available for things that we would be doing, the town would often be doing anyways or want to do, or projects and opportunities that come up where the CPA and the funds managed by the CPC can provide an alternate form of revenue. And really the fact that there's the 30% match from the state, compounds the value of what the Westborough taxpayers and residents will contribute.
So I think some of this is, as we look out in the future, people saying, well, there's a little bit more taxes being paid, not a lot per the average family, but some of the things that would be covered under this, if we didn't have it, would probably wind up at some point on a town meeting warrant article to spend to either free cash or borrow or do something with it. So this is really a way to take a certain amount of money and start to put a savings plan in place, so that we can address things like, the town hall renovation would have been a perfect example if we
Parts
had
of it,
done
yes.
this. Huh?
Parts.
Yeah, part of
Parts
the
of it.
historic preservation.
Preservation would have been we would have been able to use this kind of funding to help offset that cost.
Well, not only that, the community is not getting the state funds if we're not part of this program,
Right.
right? We're not
Right.
getting the match, so.
So it helps with that.
And as a note relative to our work as an affordable housing trust, we're very, very fortunate as a housing trust that the town negotiated mitigation for zoning variance through the ZBA, where, the Del Webb Chauncey Lake project is providing funds, a total of $9 million in mitigation funds a significant percentage of which has come to the trust and provides a source of funding for our work, and additional funds could be available as well. In most communities that have the CPA and have adopted CPA and have a housing trust, the majority of funding of the trust actually comes from the CPA funds. And so for us, long-term, well, the mitigation funds from that project are here, and we expect it to help us for several years to come. As you know, as we continue with projects and demonstrate to town meeting that we're worthy of the money for the for the projects we want to pursue, long term, right? Beyond the next decade, having the CPA in place, having those funds to continue the work of the trust in the long term makes our work as a trust more sustainable.
Agreed.
Questions for Alan on this? He's obviously looking for a vote of support from from our board that would be publicized.
Yeah.
Is there anybody we could that we would send a letter to, or the CPA committee, or how would we go
Well, so
about
the CPA Exploratory Committee, their charge was, and this is very typical of the process of getting CPA approved. So the CPA Exploratory Committee finished their charge when they made the recommendation, and it was the vote at town meeting.
Yep.
And so now there's an informal committee of residents who are, the yes on,
Vote
the vote yes
five.
on 5. Yard signs are, available. They've got the Facebook group up and running. Getting the word out that first it's on the ballot, and what, it is question 5 on our town ballot in November, and what that means. So there isn't particularly a group that we would send a letter to, but if we had a vote of support for and recommendation of passing question 5 to adopt the Community Preservation Act, we would certainly post that on our webpage. We can post it on social media. We would let this informal committee know. They could leverage that we've voted a recommendation. The Community Preservation Coalition, which is a statewide advocacy group that not only helps towns and convinces towns to adopt it, but they lobby the state to increase the level of matching funds and push more money through the CPA programs. And so we can certainly let that, we can make them aware of it, and they would leverage that in their marketing and publicity efforts.
Would we have a point person here that would then do this reach out to these various organizations?
I'm happy to do that. I'm
Okay.
in the mix.
Just want to make sure that,
Already.
if we so vote, that we have something in place to spread the word, spread the news.
So I move the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust issues a memorandum to the community supporting a vote yes on question 5 for the Community Preservation Act. And you guys, other people can modify that as they see fit.
Sound good?
Ken, you look like you might have a question.
Yeah, where can we find out more information about what the matching funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? And the thing that I was concerned about was where I saw monies that are banked can be used for bonding. How does that, when you bond, how is that going to, if a town utilizes funds for bonding purposes, how does that affect, say, the recreation department deciding, and we all vote at town meeting to utilize some of the funds, but there's a bond that's capturing
So if
some of that?
if there were enough funds in the CPA committee's community preservation fund, I guess, to use that as an asset against issuing a bond, those funds become encumbered. So you wouldn't be able to then allocate them to a project.
Right.
I don't know how common it is to use, I mean, similarly for, the trust, right? We own a property, that property has a value. As a trust, we could hold that asset and use it as an asset to bond out for another project. We could actually mortgage it to put cash into the trust, right? So the CPA fund, if there's cash in it and because you have, you can project revenue, you can use that to secure a bond. So effectively it says we have, hypothetically, if the trust, simple numbers, has $1,000 in the bank and there's a project that they want that needs $10,000, they can use the current balance and the fact that that every year through the surcharge,
But who has,
revenue.
doesn't the town in general have access to these,
No.
to the funds to bond
It-
with, not just the people that are listed? Because we are part of the town of Westborough.
So if there was a project and the CPC wanted to use its funds in anticipated revenue behind a bond, that would be, first of all, it's for a specific project. And they would make the recommendation to town meeting, and town meeting has to vote.
But it's only for the specified
Use.
use and by the listed parties, like Recreation Department, whatever.
Right, so it's not just the recreation department, right? So, a private entity could come into town and say, oh, I'm gonna convert, I've got my permits and I wanna convert, this building into 3 units and I'm going through the planning board process. That individual private developer could go to the CPC and ask for a subsidy to make one of those 3 units affordable. And if the CPC says, yes, that's a good use of the funds, they would then recommend to town meeting to take a vote on that and allow it to happen.
And never mind the tax benefits that he gets on the back end
Right.
of.
Right.
Jeez.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well,
You balance all that out.
You balance it out, it's a win-win for that guy.
well, potentially, right. But
Potentially.
Typically, in smaller projects.
I would just be concerned where the funds are going, because not everybody has a $1,000 tax bill in this town. Okay, I know what my taxes are.
Right.
And I won't be contributing just $40.
Again-
That's all I'm saying.
No.
I like the idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's 40 is the average, obviously, that
You
means
just want to
many
know
will be,
where the money
many
is.
will be higher than that,
really is going.
many will be lower than that, and then the exemptions for
Yeah.
low and moderate
Yeah.
income households and,
No, I think it's a great idea, but
Yeah.
everybody needs to understand, just like any question on any ballot.
yeah.
Yep.
It's
You really need to educate yourself.
Yeah, and so the town, the assets in the fund are not usable by the town. They can't be used against bond,
The
they can't
town
be
in
used for
general.
anything,
Can't
the
pay the
town in
bills.
general. It can't be used in the operating budget, it can't be used for, borrowing that might happen with, any other warrant article.
That
It is.
That partly
the-
answers
the
my question.
CPC
That's
says
good.
there's a
Okay.
specific purpose, a specific project.
Within the
And
within the
that
purview of what
comply
it's,
with
Okay.
pretty stringent requirements for CPA. So for example, even as the rules for housing trusts and affordable housing have been changed to align it more with the restrictions of CPA. But if the trust undertakes a project and we use CPA funding, when we account for the project, we will actually need by law to have 2 sets of books, one for the project and one to track the flow of CPA money through the
Sure.
project. Right, down to line items of how every dollar is spent. So
and
that
town
every-
meeting has to approve.
Right,
it.
and town meeting has to
You
approve.
have some
Any
checks,
use-
balances.
any
Yeah,
use
that's
of
the
the
most
funds.
important thing.
And so, it's to provide the local control.
Good
Okay.
stuff. Thank you.
All right, good. We are running right on time here. I'm willing to, we have a motion that Hank's made. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I think we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor of Hank's motion? Okay. And we did get a second, I believe, by Kate.
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Let's see.
The
Or
other
you.
Kate, the other Kate, yeah.
The other Kate. Do you go by Kate, Catherine? What's your, what do you prefer officially?
Kate,
Kate. Okay.
if you say Catherine, I won't turn around.
Kate is great.
Keyword.
That's my motto. Okay, good. Last, the only other business, town meeting, next Monday evening, starting at
7,
7.
high school.
7 p.m. at the high school. I assume we'll be in the auditorium?
Yeah,
Yes.
usually they are.
It is the auditorium with overflow into the gymnasium.
Into the gymnasium, right. I would encourage everybody, obviously, in the town, as well as, our board members, to attend. There's no specific articles relating to us, but there are some very significant articles, such as the, and I don't want to leave anything out, but, the library's a major thing. There's also, given that we do have a penchant to trying to help seniors, there is a article that would provide some additional assistance through an exemption process for seniors, homeowners that own homes, that is somewhat modeled after what's called the senior circuit breaker, the state senior circuit breaker that is filed on state income taxes, where that gives credit based upon the amount of taxes and/or rents that seniors pay. This doesn't include rent, it's only for property taxes. So, once again, it can help some of the seniors, once again, remain in their homes as our taxes continue to increase. So, that's about it. Any other comments?
Thank you, Alan, for all the work you do.
Yes, and thank you, Alan, for that, for the
Seriously.
CPA. It's been a good group that's put that together for a long period. All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
It echoed. Okay.
Seconded.
So Hank
moved, I
Hank
seconded.
seconded by,
Nancy moved, I seconded.
all in favor? Okay.
Thank you, Westboro TV.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Westborough TV.